Jungkook caught leaving Jimin's house with swollen eyes, CCTV footage leaks, and armies are shattered. What really happened behind those closed doors? Don't open that door, Jungkook, please. The voice trembled low, urgent, but already too late. You lied to them. Jimin whispered into the phone, his voice cracking with something raw and unfamiliar disbelief. Maybe. Or fear. But Jungkook didn't answer. The wind on Jeju Island howled behind him as he stood by the railing of a small, unmarked cliff near his rented villa. Waves crashed against the rocks below like the turmoil in his chest. Relentless. Wild. Merciless. Jimin was calling him at 3:12 a.m., the same time Jungkook had left his house 2 nights ago. You said you needed time. But why are people saying you've unfollowed me? Silence. You want space? I get that. But unfollowing me? That's public. That's brutal. Jungkook exhaled heavily, but not into the receiver. His hand tightened around the phone. He could still hear Jimin's shaky breaths. Still, imagine him pacing, his fingers running through his hair the way he always did when he was unraveling. I didn't unfollow you, Jungkook finally said. I deactivated everything. Jimin went quiet. Then, why? And that word, just one syllable, cut deeper than all the screaming from 2 nights ago. Because I can't be reminded of you every time I breathe, Jungkook snapped. Then, softer, more bitter. Because even when you're not speaking to me, the world won't let me forget you. You think this is easy for me? I don't think anything anymore, Jungkook said, stepping away from the cliff's edge. I just know what I saw, what I heard, what I felt when you looked me in the eye and said those things like they didn't mean anything. I didn't mean them, Jungkook. I was angry. You said I was suffocating you. A beat. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. You were. Jungkook froze. There it was, the confirmation, the dagger. And it landed right in the center of everything they'd built. I didn't mean it like that, Jimin rushed, already desperate to rewind what he'd just said. But Jungkook had heard enough. You should have told me when I gave you space last month. Not now. Not like this. Not after everything. Jungkook, I'll be gone for a while, he said. Don't call. He hung up. Inside his rented villa, the walls were bare. No photos, no memories. Just silence and moonlight pooling in through the windows. But it wasn't peaceful. It felt like exile. He walked to the sink, splashed water on his face. He stared into the mirror. His eyes were puffy, tired. The skin under them bruised with exhaustion. His lips were chapped. His throat burned from saying too much and not enough. And on the counter was Jimin's bracelet, the one Jungkook hadn't returned. The one Jimin had left behind in Japan during their last trip, which Jungkook had picked up without a word. He gripped it tightly now, and for a moment, he hated how much power it held over him. Back in Seoul, Jimin stood in his dark living room, staring at the television where news channels speculated endlessly. Words like rift within BTS, and Jungkook feud crawled across the bottom of the screen. Turn it off, he muttered. But he was alone. No one to turn it off for him. No manager. No staff. He had dismissed everyone earlier that day. The house smelled like him and Jungkook cologne, green tea, shampoo, everything a ghost would cling to. He walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. It was empty. The leftover kimchi stew Jungkook had made was gone, probably thrown out during his blackout after the fight. He hadn't slept since. His phone buzzed again this time. A call from Namjoon. He hesitated, then picked it up. I saw the leak, Namjoon said, straight to the point. What happened? I don't know, Jimin said. That's not going to cut it. Jimin sat down. I hurt him. Namjoon's sigh was sharp, almost disappointed. Why? Because I was tired. Because I felt like he needed more from me than I could give. So you decided to break him down instead. I didn't mean to. You didn't stop either. Jimin shut his eyes. He won't pick up. I wouldn't. If I were him. Namjoon, you both need to fix this before the others get pulled into it. Before the fans take sides. The heavy oak door creaked open, and the sound echoed down the silent hallway. A breeze from the street brushed against Jungkook's flushed face as he stepped out. His black hoodie pulled over his head, but not low enough to hide the truth. His eyes, unmistakably red and swollen, as if grief itself had carved its mark across them. The security camera mounted discreetly above the gate whirred, its red light blinking like a pulse. It shouldn't have mattered. No one should have seen this. But 2 hours later, the footage would be everywhere. It was 2:37 a.m. when Jungkook walked out of Jimin's private residence in Hanam. The street was empty. The city was asleep. And yet, a storm was brewing. He didn't rush. His steps were slow, mechanical. His hands trembled at his sides, occasionally clenching into fists like he was fighting something invisible, memories perhaps, or guilt. The wind picked up, brushing against the hem of his coat as he crossed the street, and disappeared into the black SUV parked quietly under the shadows of a tree. Inside the house, Jimin leaned against the wall of the entryway, hands covering his face, knees weak. His breath was ragged, barely keeping up with his racing heart. The echo of the slamming door still rang in his ears. What just happened? The silence in the room was unbearable. The air reeked of conflict of words, shouted too loud, of things said that shouldn't have been, and worse, of things left unsaid. A shattered glass lay in the kitchen. One of Jungkook's bracelets was still on the table, and Jimin's phone, lying face down on the floor, vibrated with a stream of messages he couldn't bring himself to read. 10 hours later, chaos erupted online. A blurry frame of the CCTV footage surfaced on X. Then came the slowed down clip. Then came the analyses, theorists, edits, fan cams with melancholic music. Jungkook eyes trended within 20 minutes. Then, protect Jimin. Then, what happened last night? Hybe remained silent. The footage was real. Too real. It showed Jungkook wiping his face as he left, biting his lip like he was trying not to scream. It showed pain undeniable, unfiltered, devastating. Fans were left guessing. But behind the curtain, the truth was unraveling fast. Earlier that day, Jungkook had arrived unannounced. Jimin had just come back from a long schedule, his voice hoarse from rehearsals. The tension between them had been building for weeks, ever since that interview where Jimin's answer about his closest member had excluded Jungkook's name. It was a small thing, or at least it seemed that way. But for Jungkook, who had stood by Jimin through the worst of storms, through scandal, illness, even family fallout, it hit differently. He didn't show it at first. He smiled, like always. But deep down, he was unraveling. The confrontation had been brutal. "I don't need to be your favorite," Jungkook had said, standing in the doorway of Jimin's living room. "But you made me feel like I didn't matter at all." Jimin hadn't expected that. He froze, the tea in his hand untouched, his throat tightening. "I never meant..." "You never meant. That's the problem, Hyung. You never meant to hurt me, but you did, over and over." His voice cracked on that last word. And that was when the mask broke. Jungkook wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing things. He was breaking, quietly, his chest heaving with the weight of too many suppressed emotions. Jimin reached out, but Jungkook stepped back. "No, don't do that. Don't act like you didn't see me falling apart." And then the silence stretched long, suffocating. Outside, the wind howled. In that moment, Jimin remembered everything, every late-night call Jungkook had answered. Every time he had shielded him from fans, reporters, even Hybe's staff when Jimin couldn't hold it together. And now, the one person who had always stood with him was walking away. "I don't know how to fix this," Jimin finally whispered, his voice thin, almost childlike. Jungkook smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of someone who had given everything, and now had nothing left. "You don't need to fix it. Just stop pretending nothing's broken." Then came the door, the step, the camera, the silence. Back online, the footage had reached the global news cycle. Speculations were wild. Some thought they had broken up, though they were never officially together. Some believed a scandal was on the horizon. Others said it was all a misunderstanding. A few asked, could this just be exhaustion? But those who had seen Jungkook's eyes that night knew this wasn't just fatigue. This was heartbreak. In the hours that followed, Hybe released a vague statement. "We ask for fans' understanding. The circulating footage has been taken without consent. We are investigating." It did little to calm the flames. Jimin hadn't spoken since. His phone remained off. His apartment, locked. He hadn't left since the incident. Meanwhile, Jungkook canceled a live broadcast scheduled for that evening. He was seen boarding a flight to Jeju, alone. But inside his suitcase was something he almost didn't pack: a photo. A photo of him and Jimin from their trainee days, arms slung around each other, eyes full of dreams. No cameras, no scandals, Just two boys who had once promised each other, no matter what happens, we protect this. But maybe even promises made under the moonlight were breakable. The house was quiet now, the air still thick, with the ghost of everything said and unsaid. And on a loop, across screens around the world, Jungkook's swollen eyes kept walking away. Before the label spins it into something else. I don't know how, Jimin whispered. Then you better learn fast. He hung up. Jimin stared at the dead screen. Meanwhile, Jeju offered no peace to Jungkook. He thought escaping Seoul would quiet the noise, but it only made the echoes louder. The ocean was no friend. The wind carried too many memories. He tried to record a song, but every lyric came out wrong, too bitter, too fragile. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jimin's face. Not just the version from 2 nights ago, but all of them, the way he looked in trainee days. Eyes wide with hunger and hope. The way he had cried backstage after their first win, clutching Jungkook's hand like it was a lifeline. Now they were drifting, maybe already lost. 3 days later, the storm hit. A different camera angle leaked one from inside Jimin's apartment. The audio was muffled, but it was enough, Jimin's voice. I don't want to be your emotional crutch anymore, Jungkook's voice. Then stop leaning on me when the cameras are off. Silence. Then glass breaking. And fans lost it. Some sided with Jimin saying he was allowed to want space. Others with Jungkook saying he had been used. Hybe tried to delete it, issued legal notices. But it was too late. The internet never forgets. Jimin saw the video at 4:43 a.m. while scrolling alone in bed. He watched it once, twice. Then he cried. But no one saw that version of him. No one ever would, until he went live. He sat in front of the camera, barefaced, hair unstyled. He looked human, tired. Not an idol, just Park Jimin, 29, with regrets dripping from his eyes. I made a mistake, he said quietly. The chat exploded. I said something I shouldn't have said. And I hurt someone who's always been there for me. Someone who never deserved it. He paused, swallowing. I can't speak for him, but I can say that I never stopped caring. Not for 1 second. He turned off the stream after 5 minutes. And on the other side of the country, Jungkook watched it, over and over. But he didn't cry. Not until he heard one line he had almost missed. I didn't mean it when I said he suffocated me. The truth is, he made me feel safe, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And that undid him. It wasn't resolution, but it was something enough to make him pick up his phone again. And finally, dial back. The phone rang once, then twice, then a third time before the screen went black. No answer. Jungkook stared at it in silence, as if his reflection on the screen might shift into the person he couldn't reach. It had been 2 days since Jimin went live and said what the entire world was waiting to hear: an apology, and more than that, a confession. But words spoken into a screen weren't enough. Not for Jungkook. He needed Jimin to look him in the eyes and say it, and he needed to hear the rest, the parts left unsaid, the cracks behind the curtain that fans couldn't see. Because this wasn't just a fight between friends. This was a storm that had been building for years. Thunder muffled behind awards, smiles, and carefully edited videos. And now, it had finally broken open. Jungkook turned off his phone and stepped outside. The Jeju air hit him like ice. He hadn't slept. Again, the ocean was quieter this morning. The waves slower and gentler, as if mocking the chaos inside him. He lit a cigarette, not because he liked smoking, but because Jimin used to hate it. He inhaled, exhaled. The burn in his throat grounded him. The last time they'd fought this badly was in Busan, during their 2022 World Tour, backstage. After a performance where Jimin missed a cue and Jungkook had covered for him. They hadn't spoken for 3 days. But back then, there were managers, staff, and tight schedules to force a resolution. Now, there was only silence. And silence had teeth. Jungkook walked back inside, pulled out his notebook, and wrote down the same sentence he'd scribbled for 4 nights straight. If you didn't mean it, then why did it feel so real? He stared at the ink smudge underneath, a result of his tears the first night he wrote it. Pathetic, maybe, but honest. He was about to rip the page out when his phone buzzed. You free? It was from Jimin. No emojis. No heart. Just those 2 words. Jungkook didn't reply. He called instead. Jimin opened the door before the second knock. He looked different. Thinner. Paler. His eyes sunken, his jaw sharper, like he hadn't eaten in days. He stepped aside wordlessly, letting Jungkook in. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air inside the apartment was thick, uncomfortable. Their old shared laughter was gone, replaced by a sharp tension that cut through every corner of the room. Jungkook looked around. The same furniture, the same plants by the window, the same scent of eucalyptus and lavender. But everything felt unfamiliar now. Want something to drink? Jimin asked, voice hoarse. Jungkook shook his head. Just say what you need to say. Jimin licked his lips, hesitated, then sat on the edge of the couch. He motioned for Jungkook to sit, but the younger man remained standing, arms crossed. I meant it when I said I was sorry, Jimin began. But you didn't mean what you said to me that night. Jimin looked away. Jungkook's voice rose, sharp and bitter. Answer me, Jung. Did you mean it? Jimin clenched his fists in his lap. I don't know. Wrong answer. Jungkook took a step closer, his voice low now. Dangerous. You don't get to destroy someone with words and then say, I don't know when they ask if it was real. I was angry. You called me a parasite. Jimin flinched. I didn't. You said I latch on to you when I need validation. That I make everything about me. That I ruin your peace. I didn't mean it. Then why did you say it? You could have said anything else. Walked away, hit me, but you chose those words. Silence. Then, slowly, Jimin looked up. Because they were the only words that could push you away. Jungkook froze. What? Jimin stood now, trembling. Because I needed space. Because I was drowning. Not because of you, but because of everything. And you, your presence. It's too loud, Jungkook. Too consuming. You walk into a room and everyone breathes you in. And He broke off, swallowing back emotion. I disappear next to you. Jungkook's throat tightened. So you tried to disappear me first? No, I was scared. I didn't want to lose myself. I didn't want to become the sidekick in your story. Then you should have told me that, Jungkook said, softer now. Not punish me for something I never asked for. I didn't know how. You never tried. I didn't think you'd listen. And there it was again. The dagger. Jungkook turned, ready to leave, when Jimin stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. Don't go. I have nothing else to say. You said you wanted the truth, Jimin whispered. So here it is. I've always loved you more than I could handle. And that terrified me. Jungkook's breath caught. Jimin didn't stop. You made me feel safe, seen, real, but you also made me feel small. Not because of who you are, but because I didn't know who I was when I wasn't next to you. He released Jungkook's wrist. So I built distance. I used anger. I made you into the villain, because it was easier than admitting I was jealous. Not of your fame, not of your voice, but of your certainty, your fearlessness. Jungkook stared at him, eyes wide, lips parted. And when I said you were suffocating me, I meant that I didn't know how to breathe without you. They stood there, in the middle of the room, drowning in everything unsaid for years. Jungkook stepped forward, voice barely audible. Then say it right this time. Jimin nodded, eyes shining. I love you. Jungkook looked at him like the world had just cracked open. You don't get to say that and expect everything to be okay. I don't expect anything. Good. Because I'm still furious. Still broken. Still. His voice cracked. Still waiting for the version of you who didn't see me as a burden. He's here now, Jimin whispered. Jungkook turned away, tears threatening to fall. Why now? Why only after the world saw the fallout? Because I was a coward. Because it took losing you to realize I'd already lost myself. Silence again. But this time, not hostile. Jungkook took a deep breath, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out the bracelet, Jimin's bracelet, and placed it gently on the table. I kept it, he said. Even when I hated you. I know. They stood there, facing each other, two broken halves of the same story. Neither knew how to fix it, but at least they weren't pretending anymore. Then Jungkook did something unexpected. He laughed, bitter, hollow, but a laugh nonetheless. You know what's funny? He said. We survived sasangs, scandals, death threats, label pressure, but the thing that almost destroyed us was silence. Jimin smiled, eyes wet. Then let's never be silent again. And for the first time in weeks, Jungkook nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first step. Later that night, Jimin cooked ramen while Jungkook watched from the couch. The television played some old variety show of theirs in the background, muted. Both of them laughed awkwardly at how young they looked back then. How did we not fall apart sooner? Jimin asked. Jungkook shrugged. Maybe we did. Just quietly. They ate in silence for a while before Jimin asked the question he'd been avoiding. Are we going back? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Then, to what? The group. No, Jimin said softly. To us. Jungkook looked at him. Really looked at him. Then he smiled. Not bitter. Not forced. Just honest. We'll see. And maybe that was enough for now. The quiet didn't last. It never did. The morning sun streamed through the sheer curtains of Jimin's apartment, spilling golden light over the 2 bowls of half-eaten ramen on the coffee table. Jungkook hadn't slept. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the way Jimin's voice had trembled when he finally said, "I love you" last night, and the weight those 3 words carried not as romance, but as confession, as surrender, as blood drawn from old wounds. Jimin emerged from the bedroom, hair tousled, skin bare of makeup, wearing an old hoodie Jungkook had left behind weeks ago. You didn't sleep, Jimin said softly. I couldn't, Jungkook replied. Jimin sat beside him without saying more. For a while, they listened to the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional honk from the street below, the soft tapping of the world continuing despite the rupture between them. But the silence between them wasn't hostile anymore. It felt like aftermath, like ash after a fire. Then Jungkook's phone buzzed. 3 times. He picked it up, read the message. His face stiffened. Jimin noticed immediately. What is it? Jungkook didn't answer right away. His hands were shaking slightly. He turned the screen toward Jimin. The notification was from their shared media group chat with the rest of BTS. A new video had leaked. A different one. A private rehearsal clip. One that had never been uploaded. One that had been deleted from the label's cloud storage months ago. In the video, Jungkook and Jimin were mid-rehearsal, facing off in the middle of a dance formation, but the focus wasn't on the choreography. It was on the argument captured after the music stopped. Jimin's voice in the clip was raised, cold. You can't keep fixing everything for me. I don't need your help. And then Jungkook louder. I'm not fixing anything. I'm saving your ass because you keep checking out halfway through every practice. The two had stood chest to chest. Jimin had shoved him. Jungkook had walked away. The staff's voices echoed awkwardly in the background as no one intervened. The video cut off there, but the damage was done. The tweet had already reached over 2 million views in under 30 minutes. Who has access to those archives? Jungkook asked, his tone razor sharp. Jimin was frozen. Only internal team. Maybe 3 or 4 people. Someone sold it. The thought was more than disturbing. It was betrayal. To leak an unaired, unedited internal fight a moment raw and private wasn't just disrespect. It was personal, deliberate. Jimin reached for his phone. We need to tell Namjoon. But Namjoon was already calling. The second Jungkook answered, his voice exploded through the speaker. What the hell is going on? We just saw it, Jungkook said. You need to get to the company, both of you. Now, Yoongi's losing it. Hobi's trying to hold down the media line, and Taehyung. He stopped. What about Taehyung? Jimin asked. Namjoon exhaled hard. He's pissed. The drive to Hybe headquarters was silent, except for the occasional vibration of phones receiving push notifications from K-media outlets that were now labeling the clip the moment BTS began to fracture. Inside the underground parking lot, the familiar concrete walls felt like a pressure chamber. Jimin tightened his mask. Jungkook pulled his hoodie low. Security ushered them inside without words. The elevator right up to the executive floor was long, the tension between them thick again. But not because of each other this time, because of what was coming. The moment the elevator opened, they were greeted by the sight of Taehyung pacing, jaw clenched, brows knitted. He looked up the moment he saw them. So, he said cold and sharp. You're here. Jimin stepped forward. We didn't leak it. Taehyung's laugh was humorless. Of course you didn't. But that doesn't change the fact that the world just saw you two treating each other like trash in the middle of our comeback prep. Jungkook flinched. We weren't. I don't care, Taehyung snapped. You two can tear each other apart behind closed doors, but now you've dragged the rest of us into it. Again, Namjoon stepped between them. Enough. Taehyung turned to their leader, but his eyes didn't soften. You should have seen this coming. Yoongi walked in behind them, tossing a tablet onto the table. The leak came from someone inside. We're already tracing the IP that posted the footage. It was uploaded using a burner device, likely by someone from staff. Do we know who? Jungkook asked. Yoongi shook his head. Not yet. Namjoon pinched the bridge of his nose. We've worked for over a decade to control our narrative. Now, in 2 weeks, it's all gone. Fighting on tape, swollen eyes, passive-aggressive interviews. Do you two even realize what you've started? Jimin opened his mouth, but Yoongi cut in. Save the apologies, he said. Just tell us this. Are you two stable now? Because if we're walking into a PR nightmare, I need to know you won't combust on camera. Jungkook looked at Jimin. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. I'm not going to fight him anymore, Jungkook said. Not in front of you, Jimin added. Taehyung rolled his eyes. Touching, Namjoon pulled out a chair. Sit, we're not done. What followed was 3 hours of internal damage control, media strategy, legal briefing, PR simulations, how to answer if reporters ask, how to deflect, how to reframe. But beneath it all, the wounds still bled. During the break, Jungkook stepped into the hallway for air. Jimin followed. You don't have to trail me, Jungkook said without turning. I'm not, Jimin replied. I'm here because I'm scared. Jungkook turned around slowly. Of what? That you'll shut down again. That this leak will ruin everything we've rebuilt. Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Why do you care now? Because I saw myself in that video. And I hated me. Jungkook didn't reply. Jimin moved closer, his voice lower. I thought I hated you, but I hated what I saw in me when I pushed you away. Jungkook exhaled. Do you think we can come back from this? I don't know. I'm tired, Jungkook admitted. So am I. I don't want to perform again if it means lying. Then let's stop lying. That night, without telling the label, they went live. Together. Side by side. No script. No PR team. Jimin wore black. Jungkook wore white. They greeted fans quietly, awkwardly. Then Jimin spoke first. You weren't supposed to see that rehearsal video. It was never meant for public eyes. But maybe it's good that you did. Jungkook looked at him, surprised, because it showed the truth. That we fight. That we hurt each other. That we're human. Jungkook picked it up from there. I wish I could say I was proud of how I handled everything. I wasn't. I shut down. I let my emotions take control. But I'm learning. Jimin nodded. We both are. And then, without warning, Jungkook reached for Jimin's hand and held it tightly. We're okay, he said. Not perfect, but okay. That moment went viral. But more importantly, it healed something. Not just in them, in everyone watching. Because for the first time, BTS didn't look like gods. Or legends. They looked like what they always were. Brothers. Fighting. Failing. But still holding on. You weren't supposed to find out like this. The words dropped like lead across the room, echoing in the sterile, glass-walled conference chamber at Hybe's upper floor. Jimin stared across the long rectangular table, his hands clenched into trembling fists on his lap. Jungkook didn't move, but his jaw was set hard, the tendons twitching as his eyes locked onto the woman sitting at the head of the table. Min Ji-eun, Hybe's senior director of public strategy. She didn't look guilty. She looked like someone who had already rehearsed this moment 100 times in front of a mirror. Her black turtleneck, perfect posture, and immovable gaze were the uniform of someone who dealt in optics, not morality. You leaked the rehearsal video, Jungkook said flatly, voice devoid of surprise. Only cold fury. Jeon gave a slow nod. Technically, I authorized its release. It was executed by a contracted third party, so we could maintain plausible deniability. Jimin blinked. Plausible? What the hell are you talking about? That footage was private. That fight could have destroyed both of us. Ji-eun folded her hands calmly. You were already destroying each other. The public just didn't know yet. Jungkook's chair scraped violently against the floor as he stood up. So you turned our breakdown into a storyline? We reframed it, she corrected. The leak humanized you. Your stream afterwards stabilized the fanbase. Sympathy levels skyrocketed. Your brand is now more emotionally relatable than ever. Jimin stood next. You exploited our pain for engagement? You say exploited, we say salvaged. The metrics speak for themselves. I don't give a damn about your metrics. Jungkook snapped. That video wasn't just a bad day. That was our worst day. That was the collapse of years of friendship and trust and history, and you used it as a campaign? Jeon tilted her head. The company took a risk to preserve what was left of the BTS legacy. So we're legacy now? Jimin's voice was barely a whisper. Just stories? To edit? And sell? That's not what I meant. Don't. Jungkook's voice was low now, but lethal. Don't spin this. You didn't save us. You broke something sacred. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the ceiling lights. From the back corner, Namjoon cleared his throat. Everyone turned. He hadn't said a word since Jeon revealed the truth. I told them not to do it, he said quietly. I begged them not to. They overrode me. Jeon didn't deny it. Namjoon looked at Jimin and Jungkook, eyes full of guilt. They didn't tell me until it had already been scheduled for release. I found out the day before. I should have stopped it. I should have come to you. Jimin's throat closed. You knew and said nothing? I couldn't say anything. I was under NDA. The penalty was brutal. And if I leaked it myself, they'd have wiped the slate and silenced the entire team. Jungkook turned away, shaking his head. You let us bleed for public sympathy. No. Namjoon stepped forward. I let them do it because I thought maybe it would wake people up. Maybe Hybe would finally see the cost of pushing you both to the edge. Jimin's chest heaved. We trusted you. I'm sorry. No, Jungkook said, his voice like ice. You're sorry now because we found out. But you watched that leak go live and said nothing. You watched the internet explode and said nothing. You let the entire fandom think we were falling apart naturally. You were falling apart, Ji-yoon interrupted. We just captured it. Jungkook turned to her. You didn't capture it. You orchestrated it. You lit the match and watched from a safe distance. Jeon didn't respond. Jimin looked down at his hands. Was this the plan all along? Ji-yoon hesitated. Not at first, but when the initial footage leaked from the security camera, we saw an opportunity. So you weaponized it. Jeon didn't flinch. Namjoon rubbed his face. I'll resign, if that's what it takes. Jungkook looked at him. Don't resign. Fight. Help us end this manipulation. Ji-yoon raised a brow. What exactly are you suggesting? Jungkook looked at her like she was already dust in his rearview mirror. I'm suggesting we go public. All of it. The leak, the manipulation, the contracts, the coercion, the way you use pain like currency. You wouldn't survive it, Ji-yoon said coolly. Neither would BTS. Then maybe BTS needs to burn. Jimin whispered. Everyone turned to him. Jimin looked up, eyes glassy but hard. Maybe we need to end it before you do. That night, the air was cold and sharp over the Han River. Jungkook and Jimin sat on the hood of Jungkook's car, parked by a deserted dock just beyond the city lights. Silence stretched between them for a long time before either spoke. Do you mean it? Jungkook asked. Ending it? Jimin exhaled. I don't know. Maybe it's the only way to take control again. Jungkook looked up at the stars. I don't want it to end like this. I know. We built something beautiful. Jimin nodded. And then they built walls around it. Jungkook closed his eyes. We could go live. Again, say everything. They'd sue us. Let them. They'd blacklist us. Then we make our own label. Jimin turned to him, eyes wide. Are you serious? Jungkook's lips curled into a faint smile. Dead serious. And what would we call it? Jungkook looked out over the water. Something honest. They didn't speak for a while after that. Just let the wind carry away the last remnants of the day. And then Jungkook said something he hadn't said in years. I'm scared. Jimin nodded. Me too. But I'm also done living under someone else's script. And for the first time in a long time, Jimin smiled. Then let's rewrite it. The next morning, Hybe woke to chaos. Jungkook and Jimin had released a joint video not through company channels, but their own newly created account. A 5-minute unscripted, unedited confession. No lights, no glamour. Just two men sitting on a couch, telling the truth. They didn't hold back. They exposed the leak. They named Jeon. They shared screenshots, timelines, internal messages. They didn't accuse BTS. They protected the other members. But they made it clear this wasn't just about a fight between two friends. This was about exploitation, about silence, about reclaiming their voice. The internet broke. Support flooded in. Jimin and Jungkook trended globally. And within 48 hours, Jeon was suspended. HYBE issued a statement calling the actions unauthorized and regrettable. But it wasn't enough, because the world had already chosen. And for the first time in their careers, Jungkook and Jimin were free. Not from BTS, but from the fear of being seen. The summons arrived in a black envelope. It wasn't emailed. It wasn't even delivered through HYBE's regular courier. It was hand-delivered to Jungkook's apartment door by a man in a dark suit who didn't say a single word. He bowed once, handed the envelope over, and disappeared down the hallway. Jungkook opened it with numb fingers. The wax seal on the flap had the HYBE crest pressed into it, elegant, precise, cold. He pulled out the letter. It was 2 pages long. The first was official. Cold legal jargon. Breach of NDA. Violation of confidentiality. Defamation of corporate entity. Unauthorized media disclosure. The kind of phrases that strip away humanity and replace it with risk assessments. The second page was a printed clause from the original contract he'd signed in 2013. He hadn't seen that paper in years. But he remembered the moment he signed it like a scar. Just 17. Hungry. Grateful. Desperate to prove himself. Back then, it wasn't about control. It was about escape. About chasing dreams louder than the silence of his childhood bedroom. He folded the paper slowly, placed it back in the envelope, and sat down at his kitchen table without a word. His hands were shaking. 2 hours later, Jimin arrived. Jungkook didn't greet him, just slid the envelope across the table. Jimin read in silence. Then, quietly, "They're suing us." Jungkook nodded. "They're really suing us." He nodded again. Jimin leaned against the counter, arms crossed tightly over his chest like he was trying to hold himself together from the inside out. "How bad is it? They're claiming material damage to corporate brand equity. Millions." Jimin ran a hand through his hair. "We don't have millions." Jungkook looked up. "We have truth. Truth doesn't pay lawyers. Maybe not, but lies are more expensive." The next 3 days blurred. Emergency meetings, legal consultations, long phone calls with Namjoon, with Yoongi, with Taehyung, each of them furious, confused, or heartbreakingly silent. The group wasn't fractured, but it was shaking. And HYBE was doing everything they could to push the cracks into permanent breaks. One night, while staring at the ceiling of his studio, Jimin finally said aloud the question he'd been too scared to ask. "What if we don't win this?" Jungkook turned his head slowly. "Then we make sure they lose." The next morning, they met with their lawyers. The conference room was small, clean, no distractions, just glass, wood, and the weight of consequences. The attorney assigned to them, Kang Sung-min, was lean, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste time with niceties. "You've been hit with a strategic corporate suit," he said flatly. "They don't want money. They want silence. They want fear." Jimin swallowed. "Can we countersue?" "Possibly, but not without risk." "What kind?" "Retaliation." Jungkook leaned forward. "Let them retaliate." Sung-min's gaze narrowed. "Do you understand what you're inviting? Your images will be dragged through court filings. Your messages, your private moments, your archived emails, they will dig until they find something to destroy your credibility." "I have nothing to hide," Jungkook said. Jimin didn't speak. Sung-min looked at him. "What about you?" Jimin hesitated. Then he reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table. A USB. Jungkook blinked. "What's that?" Jimin didn't look at him. "Something I never thought I'd use." Sung-min plugged it into his laptop. One folder. Password protected. Jimin typed it in. Inside were 12 audio files. Sung-min clicked one. Ji-yoon's voice filled the room, recorded in her own office. Soften the scandal. Leak a fight. Keep the sympathy flowing. Then another. If Jungkook resists, isolate him. use the rookie group as leverage, threaten his appearance slots if needed. And another, Jimin can be manipulated, just dangle a solo album. Jungkook sat frozen. Jimin didn't blink. They recorded me during therapy sessions, without consent. I found these on a discarded server after our manager changed phones. I kept them. I don't know why. Maybe I always knew this day would come. Sungmin looked at both of them. This changes everything. Jungkook finally found his voice. They used us like pawns. Jimin looked at him, eyes glassy. And we let them. That afternoon, the ceasefire shattered. Jungkook and Jimin went live again, this time with legal counsel present, with redacted audio clips shared directly with media outlets. No dramatics, no breakdowns, just hard truth. And for the first time, the fans didn't cry. They raged. Boycott hype trended for 12 hours. Stock prices slipped. Sponsors paused campaigns. Influencers posted solidarity edits. Old videos resurfaced. Whispers turned into shouts. Hype responded immediately. They released a statement calling the recordings fabricated. The boys responded with a time-stamped verification and server data. Then Hype did what no one expected. They released their own footage. CCTV. Boardroom meetings. Old behind-the-scenes clips. Edited. Spliced. Twisted. And in one particular clip, Jimin, alone during tour, saying to staff, "I sometimes think the fans like him more when he's in pain." The internet exploded. Jungkook didn't speak for 6 hours. He didn't answer calls, didn't respond to texts. He simply disappeared. When Jimin finally found him, it was outside their old dorm building, sitting on the curb, alone. "You weren't supposed to see that," Jimin said quietly, tears slipping down his face. Jungkook didn't move. They took it out of context. "I was worried. I was scared that the more you suffered, the more the fans idolized you." The footage wasn't supposed to exist. It was a therapy session. Private, confidential, 2 years old. And it was Jimin. His voice, raw and trembling, echoed through every feed and screen, slicing through the fandom like a razor to open skin. "I hate how he makes me feel like I'm never enough," the audio said. "Sometimes I think Jungkook doesn't even know who I really am. Just the version of me that exists for him. No video, just the voice." But that was enough. Enough to set the world on fire. It aired without warning, without consent, without mercy. Jimin watched the clip in silence from his bedroom floor. The video had reached 4.7 million views in under an hour. The audio was now its own trend, soundtracked under 1 million TikTok reactions, think pieces, and fan wars. People dissected every breath, every pause, every tremor in his voice, debating whether it was honesty, manipulation, or heartbreak. He hadn't moved in 47 minutes. Not since it dropped. Not since he heard himself saying those words, the ones he had forgotten he even said played back to him as if they were scripted betrayal. Then the text started. "Yoongi, tell me what's going on. Namjoon, don't say anything yet. Taehyung, no message, just the link. Hybe's legal. Please remain off social media. Army accounts. Traitor. Liar. Fake. Gaslighter. Coward. Others. You don't deserve him. He loved you. You used him. And then, beneath it all, I still believe you. Please speak." But Jimin couldn't speak. He couldn't even breathe. His hands were pressed to his chest, trying to hold himself together while his name fractured across the internet like glass under pressure. The door opened. Jungkook stepped in, his face unreadable. Jimin didn't look at him. "I didn't know that tape still existed," he whispered. Jungkook didn't respond. He walked in slowly, closed the door, sat beside him on the floor. "It doesn't matter what you said," Jungkook said softly. "It matters that they took it from you." Jimin's eyes were bloodshot. "I said I hated you. You said you hated how I made you feel. It's the same thing." "No," Jungkook said, voice firm. "It's not." Silence stretched again. Jimin finally turned to him. "Do you hate me?" Jungkook didn't answer right away. He looked at the blank wall ahead of them. The quiet hum of the city outside barely muffled the noise coming from inside their own fandom. Then he said, "I wanted to." Jimin's breath caught. "But I couldn't." "Why?" "Because I've thought things about you I'd never say out loud," Jungkook admitted. "Because I've doubted you, judged you, gotten jealous of you, felt abandoned by you. But even in those moments, I never stopped loving you. Jimin's body shook with a soundless sob. I was angry, Jimin. I was so fucking angry. Not because of what you said, but because I never knew you were hurting like that. I didn't want you to. But you were. I still am, Jimin whispered. They sat like that for a long time. Then Jungkook took his phone out and tossed it across the room. What are you doing? Jimin asked. Ending the noise. You can't end the noise. I can if I stop listening to it. You're Jungkook. You're the golden one. You don't get to just disappear. Then come with me. Jimin looked at him like he was crazy. Let's go, Jungkook said. Right now. Go where? Anywhere. We're in the middle of a legal war. We're in the middle of losing ourselves. Jimin shook his head. We can't run. I'm not running. I'm breathing. For the first time in days, Jimin smiled barely, but real. Then, without warning, there was a knock at the door. Not a manager. Not a staff. It was Yoongi. Jungkook opened the door. Yoongi looked at them both and walked in like he belonged there. I told Namjoon I wouldn't take sides, Yoongi said, dropping onto the couch. But I lied. He looked at Jimin. I know what it's like to say something in a moment of weakness, and then have the world decide what it meant. Jimin looked down. I also know what it means to fight for something that's killing you inside, Yoongi continued. And I'm done pretending we're fine. Jungkook sat beside him. You're with us? I'm not with Hybe. That was enough. But you need to be careful, Yoongi warned. They're panicking. This leak wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to divide you. Then who sent it? Jimin asked. Yoongi hesitated. I don't know yet, but someone gave them that file. And it wasn't Taehyung. Jungkook frowned. You're sure? He doesn't have access to your medical files, but someone does. Jimin's blood ran cold. My therapist. Yoongi nodded slowly. Or someone in their office. We're checking. Jimin stood up. I want to go on live. No, Yoongi said. I need to speak. Not yet. You're emotional. I'm always emotional. Exactly, Yoongi said. They'll eat you alive. Jungkook placed a hand on Jimin's shoulder. Then let me speak first. That night, Jungkook went live. Alone. He sat in silence for a full minute before speaking. They leaked his therapy session. No opening. No hello. Just the truth. That's who we're fighting. Not each other. Not you. Not Army. But a machine that profits from our pain. He looked into the camera. I've said worse things than Jimin. I've thought worse things. But I've never had them stolen from me. His voice cracked. He trusted a system that failed him. And you're punishing him for it. The chat was full of hearts. And hate. And confusion. But mostly silence. Because the world was watching. He didn't lie to me, Jungkook said. He protected me, even when I didn't deserve it. He ended the stream without another word. The following morning, the internet turned. A trending hashtag, We Hear You Jimin, followed by, Therapy is not a betrayal. Even critics stepped back, but it wasn't over. Not yet. Because that same morning, the police knocked on Jimin's door. Not Hybe, not civil court, but real officers. They had a warrant. And the charge? Unlawful dissemination of company data. A second leak had surfaced, this one tied to a document proving Hybe's internal manipulation tactics. But the IP address traced back to Jimin's VPN. His jaw dropped. I never leaked anything else. Jungkook watched in horror as they took him in. Yoongi called every lawyer he knew. Sungmin was already waiting at the station. They were being framed. Again. And this time, someone else was still feeding the fire. But who? Jungkook stared at the back of the police car as it pulled away. And for the first time, he felt something worse than anger. He felt powerless. The interrogation room was colder than Jimin expected. Not the kind of cold that came from air conditioning or steel tables, but the kind of cold that settled deep inside your bones, the kind that made your heartbeat echo like footsteps in an abandoned hallway. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, back straight, eyes locked on the table. Across from him, a young officer with a polite voice and expressionless eyes read off the allegations like he was reciting a grocery list. Unlawful data distribution, corporate sabotage, malicious breach of trust. It didn't feel real. The world outside this windowless room was still moving, cars honking, people shopping, children laughing, but in here, time had frozen, reality had fractured. I didn't send anything, Jimin said quietly for the fourth time. The officer didn't respond, just pressed play on a video file. The footage showed a screen recording of someone accessing a document from a remote drive, a folder labeled HYBE Internal Comms. The cursor moved to a file, Tier 2 Behavioral Management Protocol. Then, it uploaded the file to a private transfer site. The timestamp matched the date the second leak went public. The IP was traced to Jimin's VPN login. "I didn't do this," Jimin repeated more firmly now. The officer tilted his head. "Then who did?" Jimin's jaw clenched. "That's what I'd like to know." Meanwhile, in a cafe 3 blocks from the courthouse, Jungkook stared at the laptop in front of him with wide, trembling eyes. Yoongi sat across from him, sipping a black Americano, his expression unreadable. On the screen was a server log extracted through a favor Yoongi had pulled from an old tech contact. Jungkook wasn't supposed to see it, but now he couldn't unsee it. There it was. The truth. The second leak wasn't from Jimin's apartment. It came from a backup device, one registered under someone else's name, a name Jungkook hadn't spoken in months. Park Jingmin, the lawyer, the man who swore he was protecting them. "He played us," Jungkook whispered. "He played both of us." Yoongi's face was stone. "He was never fully ours. He used to be a junior legal analyst for HYBE before he went independent. I should have seen it." Jungkook's hands were clenched into fists. He accessed Jimin's legal folders, framed him, sold the leak back to HYBE, and made it look like an anonymous source. Yoongi closed the laptop. "Then it's time we stop playing defense." Jungkook stood. "Get me into the press room. I'm not waiting for the court to save him." That afternoon, the press room at Seoul Central District Court was filled beyond capacity. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder. Flashbulbs popped. Social media live streams clocked over 1 million viewers before Jungkook even entered. When he did, the room fell into a hush so thick it could be sliced open with a breath. Jungkook walked to the podium. New notes. New script. New pre-handler. Only fire. "I'm not here as a celebrity," he began, his voice calm but heavy with weight. "I'm here as a witness to a crime." He paused. The silence was electric. "My friend was arrested this week based on manipulated evidence. Evidence planted to make him look like a traitor, like he sold out the company.